Okay, so this was a mimer said on Shushan Purim, Tafshin Mem Aleph. So there will be actually a part over here that will deal with the significance of Shushan Purim specifically. So that's why today, being Shushan Purim, we will learn about that topic. It says in the Megillah that to the Jewish people was light, happiness, joy, and glory or honor. Before it says that to the Jewish people in general, there was all these things. It says, Ir Shushan and the city of Shushan was rejoicing and happy. Afterwards it says, in every single country, in every single city, place that the words of the king and his rule and his law reaches, there was Lihudim Haisa Mikar. So we see that there is an order, there's a progression over here. It begins with the idea of what took place in the city of Shushan. Then it talks about what took place in all. I'm sorry. Then it talks about the Yidden being rejoicing, and this took place in all the countries, and so on and so forth. So he says, we need to understand what's the connection and the continuation of the topics over here. Initially, he speaks about that the city of Shushan was rejoicing and happy. Then the next step from that was that the Jewish people had light and joy, etc. Until it came to every single country. What's the significance of every single country? Significance of every single country means it came down in chain order of descent in every single world, in every single level. So what is these three things, one following the other? The Rebbe goes on and says, in whom the idea behind this is Kimov, but the Rosh Rav saying it's brought down the Mamorim of Arabim. In the Amar Azal, the Chazal said, Golu la'elam, when the Yidden went into exile to Elam, Shechina Iman. The Shechina was along with them. The Shechina went into exile with the Jewish people. Where specifically is Elam? So the Chazal explain, or portion on this Medrash explain, the Elam Hainu Shushan, the city of, or the area of Elam, that's Shushan. Sem movement this understood. Shushan Abira, in Shushan, the capital, the Sham Gol Yisrael, that over there the Jewish people went into exile. Gol Shechina Iman. The Shechina went into exile along with the Yidden into Shushan Abira, Shushan the capital. Zeu Shehi Abira. That is the reason why Shushan is called Shushan the capital. What's the significance of being the capital? Not only is it in the simple sense a capital, that it's a capital of the kingdom of Achashverosh, but it's Biras Hamelech Malka Shaloilam. It is the capital of the king of the world, Melech Malka Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the king of kings, Hashem. Came therefore after the decree was nullified, was the beginning of the revelation in Shushan of the capital. In other words, where it was the first place that there was the revelation of this, it had to be in the Shushan Abira. That's the place where Hashem was found. Why? Because that was the place where the Eden was found. I know the Malkum Shabbanim Tzam Yisrael, and the location where Eden are found, the Ajinim Shlamata Oil Masiyah, until it came down to below to the world of action, Oil Mapshat, the world of the simple meaning of the text, the literal meaning of the text, Olam Hazagashmi, meaning came down into this physical world. that there was light and joy and happiness and glory in this literal sense. So that this came out also into every single country and every single city. That was the result of the gladness and happiness and so on that took place in this physical world. Hainu, this means to say, even in places where Yidden are not really associated and are not really there, because like we said before, where is the main place of the Yidden? Where it's the capital. That's Shushan Abira, that's the main place. So all these other countries are really not somewhere that the Yidden need to be. Still in all these different countries and cities, there are sparks that belong to the Jewish people. For this reason, the Chazal said, I'm sorry. That's the reason why Chazal say, that Hashem did not send the Yidden into exile amongst the nations, only so that converts should be added to the Jewish people. What is it referring to when it's talking about converts? It doesn't mean necessarily only and specifically literal converts, meaning people who were born not Jewish and they converted to Yiddishkeit, because like in other places the Rebbe explains, there is really not enough converts throughout Jewish history to really justify this type of dispersion that we had to the degree and to the amount. The very same amount of converts could have converted without such a big and huge dispersion. So it's brought down that the conversion or converts that we're talking about is not just human beings that convert, but every time we take a spark of holiness or we bring it out of Klippa into Kedusha, that's called the conversion. That's called Gerim. In the Tzaitis HaKedusha, it's referring to the sparks of holiness that Hashem made the Yidden, caused the Yidden to go into exile amongst the nations because they have to have all these converts, meaning all these sparks of holiness redeemed. And the manner in which they are refined is Chazal say, one of you go to exile to the place where the Berbers are. And one of you goes into exile to a different geographical location. It's as if all of you went into exile to that particular country. The one person that's found in this country, enough one Yid in that country, he could refine and elevate all the sparks in that country. Eventually, we purify and refine and elevate the entire world. So it should be a home for Hashem down here below. So that's what it means that the Yidden had the light and revelation and so on, or the city of Shushan, where the main location of the Yidden is in the state of revelation, and then it impacts as well into B'chol Medina, B'chol Ir, where Jewish people are not there really in a major way. It's only they're there to be able to complete this mission. In a Shushan, the word Shushan, the name Shushan, is the masculine form of the Hebrew word Shoshana, which means a rose. Shoshana, a rose is essentially red, despite the fact that we can go these days to the store and find many different roses. But the common color that we usually associate with roses is red. The Zohar speaks about that through keeping or putting a rose next to a fire, the heat of the fire will cause the color of the rose to change from red to white. What does that indicate spiritually? The idea of the transformation of darkness to light. The color red indicates descent. Like it says in the pasuk, "Madua Adoim lil bushech." Why is it lil bushech? Why is it red? Your garments. The source of this redness, which has to do with klippas, its source is from what Esau told Yaakov Avinu, give me from this red dish that he was eating over there, those red beans, etc., etc. But when it turns white, it becomes transformed to good. And we see this idea that when red turns to white, it indicates transformation and a spiritual elevation. Like the Hashem promises us, if your sins will be as red as this red dyed string, so then they will become as white as snow. So this is the idea of the Shoshan, the rose that goes from red to white. That's the significance of Shoshan Abira. Put similar to this vein of the red being turned to white. The transformation of darkness to light was in the time of Purim. The reason for the decree against the Jewish people during the time of Purim was because they derived pleasure and benefit from the Suda of that wicked person. And also because they bow down to an idol. The Gemara brings different views. The Rebbe is just bringing both views over here. After this heard, through their avodah for an entire year, with a complete shuvah, from about after Nisan or during Nisan, in the middle of Pesach, or just before Pesach, when the decree came about, till the next other, they were doing complete shuvah. Actually, also believe until it didn't even arise in their heart a foreign thought. In other words, they didn't think about adopting the ways and bowing down to the idols and therefore leave the Jewish people, and so and through that save their lives, because then they wouldn't be considered Jewish anymore. To such a degree that the Yidden were involved in davening. Even the youth, even the small holy seeds, meaning the small children, were involved in davening. Skip the parentheses. Through all of this, through the tshuva, through the davening, that even the children were involved in davening, they affected and caused the transformation of the decree. The darkness should be transformed to light. In whom explanation of this matter is in Shoshana Yeshba base Pirush. In the inner meaning, the spiritual meaning of the word Shoshana, there are two explanations brought down in Chassidus. The month of El, it's explained on the pasuk, I am to my beloved is to me the one that grazes amongst the roses. What does grazing amongst the roses have to do with the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people? So they explain roses, Shoshanim, in two spiritual types of service. One explanation in roses, in Shoshana, is the koyal avodas hatfilah. It's referring to the avodah of daven. Shoshana, yes, let's place alin. A rose has 13 petals. The Zohar explains. These correspond to the 13 attributes of mercy that we evoke, especially and specifically during davening. They're drawn down through davening. Pirush Abay's second explanation is the koyal limud Torah that Shoshanim, the rose, is referring to Torah study. The Shoshanim, oisius Shoshanim. The word Shoshanim is the same letters like the word Shoshanim that they are studying. The Hainu Shoshanim ba'halachas, they are reviewing and repeating halachas. So that's why Shoshana refers to Torah study. The Gam, another reason why Shoshanim indicates Torah study, we said before that a rose has 13 petals. The Gam Yud Gimel Alin, also the 13 petals, in Keneged Yud Gimel Midah Torah Nedreshes them. These correspond to the 13 principles that the Torah is derived from. There's 13 halachic principles from which we can derive a halacha from what it says in the Torah. It's in the last part of the Karbanos before Haidu. It says Rabbi Shmuel enumerates 13 principles. So these are hinted at in the 13 petals. So this is Torah. Torah is also associated with the number 13, just like davening is. So we see that the rose can indicate davening, and the rose can indicate learning Torah. And in general, these two types of indications, Mashakos of this word says in the Pasuk, Isalachti b'toichem, I travel amongst you. Chassidus explains that the word Bisalachti shemoira al beis minei hilu. It indicates two types of travel. Hiluk malmato l'maylo v'hiluk malmaylo l'mato. It's referring to travel from below to above and a travel from above to below. What does this mean? Tefillah inyana hiluk malmato l'maylo. Tefillah is a traveling where we are traveling upwards from below to above. Yedu as it's known, Tefillah usulam of arts of Rosh Hashanah. Tefillah is a ladder standing on the ground. Its head, the top of the ladder, reaches the heavens. The Torah inyana hamshacham u'maylamat. Torah is about being drawn down from above to below. Also, like it says, from the heavens, he let you hear his voice. So, in other words, that's coming from above to below. That's why these two aspects, the above to below and below to above, Torah and Tefillah, the Jewish people possessed and had and did during Purim. These are pious, like the one who authored the Piyutim, brought down in Slichas L'Tainis Esther, and the Slichas that we say in the fast of Esther, Ubekama Mekaimis, and it's also brought down different Midrashim. Mordechai, Vatinoikis, Mordechai and the little children, Valderech Zahagdoilim, and so too the adults, Osku B'Tfilah, they were involved in davening. Different place in the Medrash it's brought down. Mordechai Tzaddik gathered the 22,000 children, and they were studying together the laws of the Omer offering, the barley offering that's brought on the second day Pesach from the new crop of barley. The canal, like we said before, is Bezefani Hiluk. There has to be the two types of traveling from below to above and above to below. So how did Mordechai Tzaddik, how did the Yidden at the time of Shoshen remove the decree and transform the red to the white, transform darkness to light? It's through both types of travels, both through davening and through learning. Yes, Shloima, the Rebbe says, we could also say, this is also the reason why the particular topic that they were studying in Torah at that time was in the laws of the Omer offering. that the Omer offering also reflects these two types of travel, going from above to below and below to above. On the one hand, that the Omer was brought from barley. Barley is considered animal food. All the other karbonis that were brought from flour on the Mizbeach had to be brought from wheat, except for one other notable exception. And this was brought, the Omer was brought from animal food, indicated by Deha Krava through offering it up on the Mizbeach, to elevate the barley, the mila, very high above. In other words, the idea of the animal we are raising up very high above. Until the secret of the karbonis, the mystery of the karbonis, the deepest meaning of the karbonis goes up till the secret of the infinite, the deepest mystery of Hashem. Till it goes up to be a pleasing scent for Avayim. What's the idea of a pleasing scent? So the Chazal say, obviously Hashem doesn't smell or need the pleasing smell of the karbonis. Rather, the pleasantness is nachas ruach. It's pleasing. My spirit makes a pleasing spirit before me that I said, and my will was fulfilled. So we see how high and how deep the karbonos reach. So that is the aspect of bringing the carbon sa'ira, the carbon ha'omer from barley that were taken from the lowest level, from the level associated with animal food. And we're raising it up from below to above. Once we raise up from below to above, and then from there afterwards it comes down from above to below. The nachas, nachas is from the word descending and coming down a level. Until it comes down to a level that's pleasing before me. What's it mean before me? In the most intimate, deepest level into Hashem's pnimius. Lefana could also mean to my pnimius, to my innermost level. Hainuk shel boirei, the pleasure of the Creator, that's incomparably higher than the pleasure of us created beings. Skip the parentheses. Until it comes down so low, until it comes down to Beis HaMikdash. The Ksiv Bey, it says about the Beis HaMikdash, where is the house that you will build for me, and where is the place of my rest? Meaning, that in the Beis HaMikdash, the Hamshach is what we're drawing down from above, comes down the way of pleasantness and rest and peace. This is understood also in the service of every single Yid to Hashem. That's not just that in the Beis HaMikdash Hashem rests, but also the Chsiv, like it says, I shall dwell amongst them. Chazal said, Yisrael, amongst each and every Yid. Kol Yisrael, Mishkan HaMikdash Lo Yizbarach, every single Yid is a tabernacle and a sanctuary for the Eibishter. Wherever a Yid finds himself, he's a state of Oretz. What's the significance of Oretz? Literally, it means the earth, or it's a positive concept. Chazal say, the Lam Nikra Shema Oretz. Why is it called Oretz? The Oretz wanted and also ran to do the will of its maker. Hainu, this means that it does and fulfills the will of its maker with a rush, speed, and with desire. And like it says, it says about Eretz, that is Hashem's involvement with it from the beginning to the end of the year. That's what it means. By Deza, Oisam, Meno, Eretz Yisrael. Through that, he makes of himself into an Eretz Yisrael, which is the land, Eretz Asher Ein Hashem Elokecha B'Amreish Hashanah V'Dak Shoshana, that Hashem's eyes and focus on it from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Now, through this avodah, we come to a level of the rose, which is the depth of strength and power, as we'll soon explain. This is an expression used in the davening on Musaf Yom Kippur by Safis Torah. It's explained in the additions to the Alter Rebbe's Marmorim in Torah. Skip the parentheses. Nikra Ayuma. Why is it called Ayuma? Lashon Toikid. The word power and might. Talking about I know Toikid. That's Muslim. Musi is Barak. That from this level of Shoshana, this rose, this transformation, we reach this highest and deepest level and the power of Hashem's very essence. Also, olam, the word olam, world, is an expression of concealment and covering. Pirish Helen Behester, unless it's supposed to, it's probably supposed to say over here not olam but elam. We said that there's a Maimer Chazal that says that elam, when the Yidden went to exile to elam, the Shekhinah was with them. So elam is also from the word concealment and covering. What does that mean? Pirish Helen Behester, what's this idea of this concealment and covering that we are identifying with the city of, with the area of Shushan? Though Hashem, with his great kindness, brought him to a place of comfort. He's comfortable physically, and even he's comfortable spiritually. He has the freedom to be able to serve Hashem, and he does serve Hashem, etc. The matter is only dependent upon his will. Because he's in a free country, he can serve Hashem to the utmost. Despite that he has all this comfort spiritually and materially, this is still considered a concealment. Because he still finds himself in exile, double and quadruple darkness. When he still has not yet reached that spiritual state that's known that godliness is a given and the existence of the world is something that he's got to work on. The way it works by regular human beings is that the world and everything around it is considered a given. But godliness is something we need to work on. So if we're still at that stage and we haven't come to the flip side of that, godliness is the obvious thing, so that means it's still gullus, it's still darkness, there's still concealment, we're still elam. Yet, despite that concealment, not just despite, but because of that concealment, through the descent down below in Shushan, the depth, which is so such a mighty depth, not the height of heights, but the opposite of that. Very deep dollars, in a very terrible and awesome and deep descent. We come to the revelation of the power and might of Hashem's very essence. Like the above mentioned, Maimer Chazal, they went to exile in Elam, the Shekhinah was with them. Another thing we could explain about Shushan in the service of a Yita to Hashem, by prefacing the Lachura Tzarech seemingly you understand. Lama Biksha Esther Eitzlach Hashvedish. Why did Esther request back Hashvedish? Nosen Gam Machal Yehudim Asher B'Shushan, that it should be given also on the morrow to the Yidden that were in Shushan. Last is Kedos HaYom, to do the same thing. Sorry, to turn the page. like the law of today. In other words, why did Esther have to request Achashverosh to give the Jewish people the possibility to do again in Shushan on the 14th of Adar the same thing that the Jewish people did throughout the 127 countries of Achashverosh on the 13th of Adar? Seemingly, whichever way you look at it, this needs to be understood. If they already concluded the war, they don't have to do like the rule of the day in Shushan. In other words, if they finished off all their enemies, if there's no enemies anymore to destroy in Shushan, no more Jew haters left, so why ask the king, you know what, let's do it again in Shushan? For what? Vim Lav. And if you're saying that the war wasn't over, they still had enemies in place, so it was only in Shushan. They had to also kill off their enemies in other countries of the king. In other words, the Rebbe is like saying, it doesn't make sense that only Shushan would have had enemies left over. Jew haters would have been left over there. Either there were enemies left over all over. So just like you had to kill for a second day in Shushan, you had to kill them for a second day in all the 127 countries, or we had eradicated all of our enemies. So what was there left to do in Shushan? The Rebbe gives a very Chassidus explanation for this. I mean, according to the simple meaning of the pasuk, you can maybe say that there were more anti-Semites maybe in Shushan than there were in the rest. But gotta look at the Mefarshim more about this. But here the Rebbe is going to explain this according to Chassidus. But the idea behind this is spiritually, the war in other countries of the king was the war in the course bad. There are certain types of bad, there are certain types of evil, there are certain types of things that are clearly and more openly bad, and that doesn't take as much spiritual work to get rid of. It is the problem with the less subtle bad that takes a longer time to drill down and to be able to recognize it and to eradicate it. But in Shushan, there had to be the war also against the subtle bad. The subtle, more finer type of bad is deeper. Therefore, the war against that more subtle type of bad is more difficult. Because of like it says in a similar vein, the students of Rabbeinu Yoina, that they explain an interesting halach. The Gemara says that there are two different types of carbons. One is a carbon that one brings if they are in doubt if they transgressed a certain avera. It's called, they don't know if they ate non-kosher fats, which is called chelev, or they ate kosher fats, which is called shuma. That's called an asham tali. That is you have to bring a more expensive type of carbon. Whereas if a person is sure that they ate non-kosher fats by mistake, so then they bring a carbon chatos, and that doesn't have a minimum amount how much you have to spend on. So the students of Rabbeinu Yoina explain, how come? What's the logic behind it? That if you're in doubt that you did an Aveda, you need to bring a more expensive carbon. And if you don't have a doubt, you know for sure you transgressed the Aveda, there you have to pay less. The logic doesn't seem to hold. So let's see what the Rebbe explains. In the name of the students, Rabbeinu Yoina, the reason for this, why a Asham Toli, which is brought on a doubt, you have to pay 2 silver coins. The chatas mazdanka, and the chatas needs only a small pittance of a coin. So the students Rabbi Yonayan explained the kivan sha'adam ha'asham ba'al safek chet, since an asham comes or a doubt of a sin, eina mescharet kol kach, he doesn't have so much regret. Since he doesn't have so much regret, so we need to bring this home to him that, listen, you made a mistake, even if it's a doubt of a mistake, this is something you got to take care of. So that's why he needs more effort to take care of that. That more effort is expressed in the fact that he has to spend more on the expenses of that carbon. What does that mean spiritually? But this means spiritually as follows. The Asham Tali Baal Safik Chalev Safik Shuma. The Asham Tali came for a person that had a doubt if he ate non-kosher fats called Chalev, or he maybe ate only kosher fats, which is called Shuma. What is this? What is fat indicate in the spiritual sense? Fats means the juicy, tasty thing. The olden times, that was fatty meat. That was the enjoyable piece of meat, the pleasurable piece of meat. And Shesafik Etzloi, he has a doubt. Im hatayim shebenafshi shakua binyane iser, is the enjoyment of his soul immersed in prohibited things, oy binyane reshus v'heta, or is it immersed in permitted things, in allowed things? Zeu dakas hara. That is a more subtle type of evil. That's a subtle type of bad where he doesn't know where his enjoyment and where his pleasure comes from. Now, so let's skip over the parentheses. Sam, moving from this understood, the Inyan Shushan ba'avoida hu birur dakas hara, the idea of Shushan in the avoida of a person, that is the refining of the more subtle type of bad, and that needs more energy. That one day of uncovering and revealing and refining was insufficient. One needed more. So this also talks about this a lot, that when a person needs to, let's say, refine precious metals, they find, let's say, gold, silver, or whatever else underground, diamonds or whatever, precious minerals. So there's the coarse bad, meaning the coarser clods of earth. Those don't need a lot of energy and a lot of effort to like wipe off and separate it from the clods of earth surrounding. That's visible, that's clear, that's open. But when you're dealing with more finer details of that, over there, the dirt and the schmutz that's embedded in the gold or the silver or whatever other precious items we find in the ground, that needs a lot more effort to extricate it from that. You need to smelt and melt down the gold and so on and so forth. The same thing when it comes to the more coarse evil. That was the war of the 127 countries. That was taken care of in one day. Shushan Abira was about taking care of the more finer and more subtler type of evil that you needed more time. So now we understand why the order of the pasuk was this way. That's where it says first it was the city of Shushan was rejoicing. And then following that, it says the next step was Liyehudim Eden had light, etc. Through the descent into Elam. And we said, what does Elam indicate? Because Helam v'Hester, concealment and covering. We come to the ultimate asset. What the Rebbe always emphasizes, the greater light that comes only as a result of the darkness. So it should be for us. And we should bring close one redemption to the other redemption, the Begulas Purim Novi Al Agula Asida, from the redemption of Purim, we shall come to the future redemption. It says, "Come out Mitzrayim, run the floors like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. I will show you wonders." We will go with our youth and our elderly and our sons and our daughters. The Kabul to greet the face of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Even the base of English from Kaime, you will build a base of English in its proper location. And over there we will celebrate the 8th day of the training. This was said during Parshat Shmini. So the 8th day of training was the first day of Chodesh Nisan. 7 days they were training the Kohanim and the Leviim, and the 8th day was when they actually began the service. Not the Lesla Torahs, that date, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, had the importance of 10 very important things to place. The Peirim Bein Mamash should be speedily in our days, just like then, we should have it now as well.